Most depictions of Pentecost focus on a birthday, tongues of fire, and the start of a religious club. But when we look at the specific language of the Book of Acts, the imagery shatters that quiet celebration. The details point toward a strategic counterstrike. This event functioned as an invasion, a spiritual offensive aimed at the powers that had governed the nations since antiquity. To understand the logic of this attack, we have to look at the nature of the occupation that made it necessary. The story starts in the desert, at the Tower of Babel. Genesis 11 describes a moment where the human lineage was forcefully divided. Under the Deuteronomy 32 worldview, the confusion of languages at Babel is interpreted as a formal, legal act of disinheritance. According to this ancient perspective, God assigned jurisdiction over the world's 70 nations to a council of lesser divine beings, the rebellious Elohim. This division created a spiritual blockade. These nations were now isolated, physically and spiritually separated from the presence of their Creator. From Babel onward, the earth was effectively occupied territory, managed by hostile spiritual powers that claimed the nations for themselves. In Acts chapter 1, we find Jesus with his disciples inside the walls of Jerusalem. He is acting as a commander preparing an invasion force. Replacing Judas was a matter of restoring the 12 to represent the tribes of Israel. This rebuilt God's royal council on earth, establishing the leadership needed for the coming operation. Jesus issues his final command: push outward to the absolute ends of the earth. He orders his followers to systematically enter territories currently held by the rebel gods. This restored council provided the legal foundation required to begin reclaiming the 70 disinherited nations. On the day of Pentecost, the offensive begins. It starts with the arrival of a violent wind and tongues of fire. These signs, wind and fire, mirrored the appearance of God at Mount Sinai. For the first-century Jews present, this meant the Creator was re-entering human history and power. At Babel, language was a weapon used to divide and scatter humanity under the rule of the sons of God. At Pentecost, the Holy Spirit uses language as a tool for understanding. This allows the message to bypass the ancient barriers set at the tower. The miracle of tongues offered a path for the occupied nations to return to a single family, effectively nullifying the division of Babel. Luke provides a list of the nations present that day: Parthians, Medes, Elamites, residents of Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Rome. This isn't a random list. Overlaying it on the 70 nations from Genesis 10, the regions provide a perfect match. God was calling out the coordinates of territories ruled by rebel gods, marking the ground he intended to take back. Pentecost provided the geographical blueprint needed to dismantle the Babel contract. After Peter's sermon, the visitors from these distant lands returned to their homes, deep within territories governed by the rebel powers. These travelers functioned as spiritual cells, carrying the message of the new king directly into the domains of the dark powers. Unlike the Old Testament, where God's presence was tied to a physical temple, the Spirit now descended upon individuals. When a person high, every believer now functioned as a mobile territory of the Creator. Even in the heart of the Roman Empire, the ground was being reclaimed. Pentecost served notice to the spiritual powers. Their era of uncontested rule over the nations had met a legal challenge it could not ignore. The curse of Babel was broken, not by forcing everyone into a single language, but by having the presence of God speak every language, reclaiming the earth one